I'm going to call this regular council meeting of the Delaware Tribe Indians to order and ask Councilwoman and Dan Ketchum to lead us in prayer.
Yes, sir, I will. Shall we stand? Lord Jesus, we're going to bow before you this afternoon and this evening, and we're going to ask you to watch over each person here at the table, to enlighten our minds, to give us the mind that's in Christ Jesus, that we might be able to make weighty decisions for this tribe. Lord, and just let those who are observing this meeting tonight be in prayer for us as we sit here tonight, and encourage us and give us any wisdom that they might have. Father, we're so grateful for our war mothers tonight, and we're grateful for our judges, we're grateful for our employees, we're grateful for the many, many people that is the supporting staff of all of the things that are going on here. And Lord, especially for our the safety we enjoy in this nation and those who protect it. God, we just know that the Delawares have been around a long time, and if you hadn't had your hand on us, we wouldn't have survived. And we're grateful tonight to be here. Watch over our elders who are ill and who need your attention, oh God, and be with the children as they come into the Christmas season with all the joy and cheer that they have, their innocence, the fun times that they're looking forward to. And us too, oh God, we look forward to the joy and the spirit and the peace of Christmas. For we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Roll call.
Chief Chet Brooks. Here. Assistant Chief Bonnie Jo Griffin. Here. Secretary Nikki Michael. Here. Treasurer Benita Shane. Here. Member Annette Ketchum.
Here.
Member Nathan Young.
Here.
Member Michelle Hawley. Here.
I'd like to welcome all of our tribal members and other guests, and ask this council for a motion to approve the agenda.
Also move.
Do I hear a second?
Also.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of prior meetings minutes. I know that you council members probably discussed these minutes. Several draft minutes several days ago. So you can have time to review them.
I'd move to approve the previous meeting.
All of them?
I do see in here that we have not approved the minutes from October the 20th meeting.
That was true. I believe we were asked to wait and look at the tape, but I've looked at the tape 3 times. I believe Nikki Michaels viewed it, and Cy Hughes never mentions anywhere in there that she took ballots home. So I think the minutes should stand as written.
Okay, I would remind our new council members that they were not in attendance at said meeting.
So do we need to separate those minutes out?
We should, I think.
Nate, would you read?
I would move we approve the minutes, segregating or separating out the October meeting.
I can't hear.
You got your mic there.
I move to thank you. I move to adopt the minutes and segregating or separating out the October 20th minutes. Is that the fair motion?
No, we'll make a motion separate for the 28th.
Okay.
Actually, I would like to take December 2nd special meeting out. Those meetings are not, or the minutes are not full. The tape wasn't posted, so the previous 2 before those.
The November
I'll consider that
17th.
Yeah.
Yeah, friendly amendment. So November 17th and November 24th.
That's fine. I'll consider that a friendly amendment. Is that all right?
I'll second that.
In other words, we're just skipping around the October the 20th.
I'm going to make a motion for that separately.
Okay. Motion's been made
I'll
to
second. For November 17th and November 24th.
approve November 17th and 24th. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? I am going to abstain on that because I hadn't actually read all of those minutes.
I was not on the council October minutes, but I was present, and I will make a motion that we approve the, is it October 20th? Is that the date? Those minutes as written.
Second that motion.
Discussion or corrections?
Call for the question.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions?
I abstain. I was ill that night.
Again, I think if you weren't there, you needed to probably.
Okay, I abstained. I voted that. I was just reading these minutes that he and I were both absent due to medical. I had a doctor's slip that excused me.
Oh, Paul's going
Chief Johnny?
Chief, Counsel, on the minutes that you said that she did not say she took those ballots home, did she say she took them out of the box? She took them out of the post office box. She did say that, didn't she?
I wasn't listening for that, but I think so, yes.
So that was illegal. You needed to put that in the minutes. Whatever she said should have been put in there. And if she said you said she didn't say she took them home. She told me later she took them home for sure. But she did say in the meeting that she took them out of the post office box, which is illegal according to the election rules.
She said she took them out of the post office box. She said she picked some up from Sandy.
And that wasn't the ballot, that was the request for a ballot, absentee ballot.
Yeah, those were the requests.
She was talking about two different things when she was talking about the post office box. But what she said was that she had received more requests. She was trying, but she had already started receiving the ballots back because she had already mailed out the ballots, so she was receiving them back. And she said she took them out of the box, and that's illegal. She was supposed to leave them in there until the morning of the election, and then 3 people, according to the election rules, 3 people were supposed to go down to the post office box and pick them all up at the same time. And it didn't happen. That's
Court's
not the
already
way.
ruled. Let's move on.
Should we add that to the minutes? Is that what you're saying?
We've already voted on that.
Minutes can be changed at any time. Any minutes can be changed, Robert's rule. An objection on minutes can come up at any time.
Do I hear a motion from this council to hear the objection and again review the tape? Because for one thing, I don't think that the election rules prohibit the election board from taking ballots out of the post office prior to Saturday, November the 1st. Laura.
Chief, that's not right.
I want to say that the year before, I was on one of the election committees, and we did go pick up, I did go one time and pick up stuff out of the box. Luann Hayline was the chairman of that committee, and I know she had to go pick up things out of that box. Yes. You know, so that was part of the being on the election board.
I do know we changed our rules, and maybe they didn't read that way, but I thought they had always read that way, that you left the ballots in the post office box. Now, the rules that we were going by definitely said it.
I don't know who made those rules, because we had rewritten the election board rules before. So, it's my say.
I'm going to ask that we vote on my motion that we approve the minutes of October 20th.
Are we with the changes that are we putting the changes in?
I don't think there is a change.
Oh, I thought that, she said that, Paula said that, that she
Have you looked at the
said,
video?
I have not seen the video, that's what I'm
I
asking. But Monica just said that it didn't say that she picked them up at the post office. If that is not what the rules said this year, regardless of what they said in the past, if this year it said that no one picks them up unless 3 people go down there together and do it.
It doesn't say that.
The election rules don't say that?
Look at it. It don't say 3 people.
Is it 2?
It says 1 person and someone with them.
Someone with them, okay.
I would like to say that since this is a point of contention that needs to be clarified, why don't you hold off on this vote to include this statement and bring the election board chairman in to clarify it before anything is done? That way it will be over and done with and we can move on.
I don't have a problem with that, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. I agree with that. We'll just take
This council is intending to do exactly that.
Yes, we do. Table, in other words, we'll table the motion as to until we all understand.
And all the council members need to make sure they look at the video.
And make sure they bring the election rules with.
And they're online.
Move on to the treasurer's report. If you so desire.
Treasurer's report.
If you so desire.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the financial reports, thank you. Pending audit.
I'll second that motion.
Call the question.
The motion's been made, seconded, and the question called to approve the financial reports. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Old business. Do any council members have a report to give? If not, I'll ask our tribal operations manager to come forward and give his report.
Curtis, where are you? Curtis, we're waiting on your report.
Just trying to eat.
We didn't want to.
I know, but you don't want me with a mouthful of food here. Okay, Councilman, my report is in your packet. Just to try to quickly summarize here, since the meeting in mid-November, my work has been primarily to provide operational support to you council members during your first full month in operation. And for everyone else listening in, it was to provide things like office space, computers, phones, keys, and other support functions. Most of my work has been centered on the reorganization of DFMS, and I've been working with Kelia Kindred, who is now being brought in under the tribal umbrella. I've appointed her as an administrative assistant to me to work on the reorganization of DFMS from the standpoint of the books. We're also working with Paul Bradford, our contractual financial consultant. We have a set of financials for DFMS in your board packet also. We are not done with it, but we have the financials done for the fiscal year ending September the 30th of 2014. Those numbers are have been developed in your report. And then I've also been working with our human resources manager on the reassignment of the DFMS employees, primarily over to the housing side, to provide maintenance services. Activities in progress, working with Greg Brown, our contract editor, our tribal staff, working with Nikki Michael, our tribal council secretary, on the layout for the January issue of the Delaware Indian News. Are you all going to address the actual publication date tonight? Okay, all right.
New business.
As far as other activities in progress, we're still awaiting the solicitor's opinion on our trust application for Caney, Kansas. I am prepared after this meeting and in the coming couple of weeks to present to you a report I just received from Tom Peckham on our trust fund litigation, and really need to have a detailed briefing with you and get Tom on the phone, kind of let you know where we are so far. We've got numbers on the table that approximate $475,000, and we have some work to do in Washington, D.C. With tribal council leaders working with the Department of Interior and Department of Justice officials and try to see if we can negotiate a settlement on trust funds that would come to this tribe. That is something that, again, let's wait till after the holidays, but something that I would encourage us to really get involved in a detailed briefing. And I'll email you the report that I've received from Tom that I just received at the end of the day yesterday. DFMS reorganization, it is indeed something that is in progress. We've got more work to do before we can basically shut down DFMS, but I've been working closely with our accounting department, with Kelia, with some of you council members. We're reassigning the staff members, as I reported to you, reconciling bank accounts, paying out creditors, assessing all of the vehicles and all of the equipment that DFMS has, and making sure it gets reassigned for use around the tribe. We have existing contracts with vendors that DFMS had that we need to renegotiate, including contracts for janitorial services. In the meantime, I continue to coordinate providing maintenance and janitorial services at our tribal buildings here at Bartlesville and up in Caney. The Pine family lease on the house that we have up in Lawrence, Kansas has been extended through January 31st, although I spoke with Brian Pine, and I expect them to be moved out probably no later than this time next month, and then I'll have to go up there and kind of get things put back in order. And part of our long-range planning is where are we going with our property in Lawrence? Because the next line item on my report is to see where we are with this Sustainable Foods project that we were at the table working with various agencies, city, county, state, U.S. Department of Agriculture, 3 higher education institutions in the state of Kansas. So whenever the tribal council is ready for more detailed discussion, we can take a look at how and if we're going to restart those talks with this multi-agency group. Part of my ongoing work is the management of the sod farm lease with the Pine Landscaping Company up in Lawrence, Kansas. And then let's not forget, we still have grant proposals to the Original Americans Foundation for 2 12-passenger vans and the completion of the walkway around the stormwater pond that we have. I did get an email from Nick Lay from the coordinating organization, and he said that they've asked to respond to us after the holidays. Their board members apparently are off doing other things or whatever. He just said if we could get together after the holidays, they would follow through on the status of our request, but that request is still active. As far as plans for upcoming activities, looking ahead in the next several weeks, we'll be, I would like to coordinate and conduct briefings with each of our department directors for the new tribal council members, visit with these department directors, either have them come up here or go to their department, meet with the staff, take a look at their plans, and I guess become better acquainted with each of the departments. Also, we anticipate that our child support services program will be receiving their comprehensive grant, and when we go comprehensive, we, meaning the tribal operations and our accounting department, will need to provide support to the child support services, and that I know the court is working on getting ready to do their part. So we have been in contact, and I'm certainly pledging my support to make this program successful. We will be working with you tribal council members, and I'll be working with our housing director, Ron Scott, to submit additional housing program policies and procedures. We've got some updates on our low rent policy, particularly as it relates to people with disabilities and service animals, which was an issue that came up several months ago. We've got some revised language that we hope will address those concerns. I would recommend that we, maybe put it out there for, once we present it to you all, we might want to put it out for some public comment, particularly with some of the individuals who were affected by this issue, and make sure we get enough input. And I would urge then some kind of action in the coming weeks to settle on some new updated housing policies. And then by this time next month, our housing program needs to submit a new fiscal year 2015 Indian Housing Plan. We are on a separate fiscal year than our federal fiscal year, so we've got until January the 16th to submit a Indian Housing Plan for the next year, and we'll want to get some input on that and a resolution to submit at your next meeting. We'll want to get that accomplished. Coordinating with our new CFO, she's new, back in the role, Jean Lewis, but we have discussed developing internal controls for all of our accounting systems. I think we want to make signing off on the stacks and stacks of documents. We want to streamline that process while providing adequate oversight to review the approval of all of our payables and other accounting documents that do require review by key individuals. But quite frankly, I'd like to save myself and our chief some time from having to sit there and look at and review and sign every $3.98 bill that comes across the table. And I think we got a way of doing that that will still provide the accountability and the oversight necessary to protect the financial interests of our tribal members. And then finally, I'm looking forward to coordinating a meeting with the chief and the tribal council and Paul Yates, our BIA superintendent up at the Miami agency. I think it'd be great if we could all go up there, not only meet with Paul, but I've advocated that we also attend a meeting of the Intertribal Council, which is the other 9 tribes up in the Miami area, perhaps even host a reception at a meeting of the Intertribal Council and become well acquainted with those other tribal leaders up there, since we are part of that fraternity, now 10 tribes in the Miami area agency. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, that's the highlights of my report. Many of you all I've worked with on an almost daily basis. I welcome your questions or comments.
Do any council members have a...
I have a question. Curtis, I saw that on the job listings there was a part-time administrative assistant needed for DFMS that was listed on our, and I was wondering, have you had any interviews, or I don't quite understand what that assistant's going to do. Like you said, you have Killia, and I just didn't know what was that person going to do?
May I? Yes, ma'am. And that's been a long overdue oversight on our part. This was a job that came up like last spring or late spring, and we posted it. It was never filled, and quite frankly, there is no need to advertise that. So the word has gone out to pull that down. Okay. We're not advertising for such a position.
That's what was so peculiar to me. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
If I may, I'm starting to take over the communications of the tribes, so I've gotten hold of the Facebook page, and Chris gladly handed that over to me. He didn't want that responsibility anymore. And we're working on the Delaware Indian News at this point, and then we're going to revamp our website. We've also advertised for a person to come in and actually have that duty. So if we can have your patience, hopefully by the end of January we can have the website revamped and up to date. And we welcome all your input, any suggestions or ideas, we're very much open to. We want to appear and be as professional and polished as possible for you all.
other council members. Curtis, I'd like to ask a question, because I've been hearing it in the lunchroom for about the last month or 2 months. I moved out of 204 North Barbara almost 10 months ago, and I know it took 6 months or more to get it ready for reoccupancy, and I know that the tribe was considering placing Maryland Hayrow in there, but I've heard repeatedly, and I do know that it's a fact, that Kay Anderson applied about the same time I was moving out 10 months ago, and I have been told that her application was maybe not complete or something. But I believe that, as far as I know, it's complete now, and I'm simply asking, since she's homeless, in effect, she's living in a little bitty travel trailer with no heat. Surely she is qualified to occupy that unit, and I'd like to ask for the housing program support in placing her.
Okay, yes, Chief. Of course, I don't have the application or the tenant file or the unit file in front of me, and I would want to coordinate with Ron. I did hear that we assisted in making sure that the application was complete, and in many cases, some of our applicants do need, because it can be a bit intimidating with all of the details that are required. I'll follow up on it, and we'll follow the rules, but I'm certainly now that I'm aware of this, I will do my best to follow through quickly and find out where we are on this placement. I'm actually surprised we haven't put somebody in already.
Right,
I do want to state,
it's ready.
Okay. I do want to state, though, the 6 months, though, that was not every day sustained 6 months. It just took that long to finally get it done.
I have no criticism about how long it took, but I do know that it's been ready for a month or two.
Right, and so I'll follow up and find out the status of that. And, my standing position on all of this is, any of our housing units that are unoccupied, we're paying the rent. If we put people in there, they're paying the rent. So we want to have as high of an occupancy rate as possible, and I will,
Kay's back there.
Well, I know, I see Kate here, but I don't see anybody from the housing staff, so I'll have to get with them in the morning, but I'll get right on it, and I'll have a report for you on the status of that. As far as anybody...
Could you keep Kay updated?
I'll have our housing staff keep her updated closely. Many of them come up here every day for lunch. I mean, we all kind of see each other. It shouldn't be that big of a mystery. But at no time, if we know of people who are homeless, just flat out homeless, we do have empty housing that we can put them in. It may have to be in Chelsea. And we've run into a situation where we had a family that their home burned down and they had nowhere to go. We immediately offered them a place in Chelsea, but they chose to stay and be with family and stay in the community that they were already in. So we are sensitive to that. We'll do our best to make sure that nobody is homeless and out on the street.
Curtis, on the same note, another issue was have they made some headway on getting people that are way behind on their rent brought up to date?
Yes, ma'am. We do have an active collections effort. As a matter of fact, that's headed up by Lacey Sousa. And so we are moving forward with collections of people who are behind on their rent. It's part of the program.
I see.
Okay, will that work for you? Okay.
I'll follow up, I will.
Are there further questions?
I just have one. When you're talking about the child support enactment, is it starting January 1st? Is that?
I may have to turn.
She's gone.
Did she leave too?
Yeah.
Oh. I have to refresh my memory of the report. I think we're looking, it may go into effect on the books as January 1st. When we actually get the money credited to our account with an approval letter, may not come until after January 1st. But I think once they give us the award, we expect that it will say retroactive to January 1st. That's what I got in a report from our director, Gina Roth.
Curtis, I think they're hoping for January 31st at this point in time. Everything's been turned back into the government, has to be reviewed and come back.
You said January 31st?
31st is what they're hoping for right now.
31st. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And some of us met with Charles and Rick Barnes and Beverly and Gina and Kenzie. Michelle and Chet and I did, and had a real nice meeting with them. It went really well, and I think they're on top of everything. And so we talked through a couple of issues, but I think it's a real good working relationship right now.
We're very anxious to get this underway.
Yeah.
It's a great plus for the tribe.
Thank you, Curtis. Good report. At this time, I would ask Tim Hausberg, possibly with the assistance of our attorney, David McCullough, to address this on our economic development or opportunities update.
Do you want me to face this way or that way?
Probably face down.
Probably face down.
Well, there's not going to be any love offerings.
Last week, is that on?
Push the button.
Last week, the tribal council, 2 weeks ago actually, met with a group of businessmen to consider a business opportunity, which would be hydroponic farming. It would be essentially to grow lettuce indoors to local volume suppliers. It would potentially employ 3 shifts of 100 employees with a starting pay of about $16 an hour, and they would need no prior training. All that would be done on the job. It would be, the considerations would be to build, buy, or lease a piece of property in an area that made sense logistically for the tribe to have the opportunity to employ as many people as possible. This is the very first meeting with this group of businessmen. It's in its very early stages of feasibility and due diligence by this tribal council. Some of the next steps along with that would be to consider a trip to see the actual one of their operations, which would be up and functionable in late February, which the tribal council would have an opportunity to see the operation work, to see the produce being made, and again to examine the books to see if it was something that might be viable in the future for the Delaware tribe.
The Osage Nation has received a grant for a demonstration on aquaponics. Yeah. Yeah.
Last week, right after that, the tribal council met with a group that had been meeting with the tribe for about 18 months under the previous administration to consider the opportunities in the 8A government contracting industry. They were again here last week and have identified some potential opportunities in the future for the Delaware tribe to take advantage of some Department of Defense contracting. That is a continued ongoing, I wouldn't say negotiation, but talks about seeing how the tribe could potentially come in place to take advantage of some of those opportunities in the near future.
Susan.
I had a question. You said that you had an opportunity in February to examine. Is this another company that's already doing the?
Yes, ma'am.
Where's that located?
There's one in Pennsylvania and one in South Carolina.
I did some preliminary research through Arizona.edu, and I believe I sent a copy of that to
You sent it to me, I know.
Bonnie and Chet and Benita, I believe. And I had a lot of concerns. I guess my main concern is jumping into something like this without a lot of due diligence. And I want to encourage you guys to do more research before you sink any money into this, because the Arizona EDU website had a lot of negative statements in it just due to a lot of the companies going belly up. We can't afford another loss in a business.
This particular group and this particular conversation was just, hi,
Right.
how are you?
Right.
Would you consider this? This tribal council is looking for things, jobs, sustainability, things that are healthy in nature, both financially and physically for Delaware. And so, you know, as they weed through opportunities, this one kind of catches your eye because there's a potential to employ 100 Delaware.
Right.
And this is very, very, very early in the stages of even consideration. You know, the first they heard about it was really last week, although the discussions to get these guys were actually months and months and months ago. But we're on our very first step of due diligence.
Well, when you stated that the employees, 100 employees, would not have any previous training, from the article in the Arizona EDU stated, yes, you must have.
Well, these guys specifically would start a training program, you're correct, to grow any type of, actually call it manufacturing, not farming, which is odd to me, but that's what it is. You know, it would basically, they would create the whole work environment. They would take Delaware in. They would propose to send Delaware to be trained at an existing facility. Bring those trained employees here and build the operation from the ground up while training people from the top down. So training and education is very, very important. But I think probably what I was trying to hit on is you didn't need a college degree to start out. You could, you know, we would take the basic guy that could have a driver's license and show up to work and start him out and train him.
Okay, so you're actually looking at purchasing more land?
No,
And I
ma'am.
thought it was
No,
to utilize the land that we already have in Lawrence, but
Right.
that's
No.
not the case?
no,
No,
ma'am.
no.
ma'am.
And it's not new land, Susan, but trust me, I mean, we're not even to that stage.
well.
I
No.
mean, we are going to very much take this piece by piece apart. Tim will probably hate us by the time this is over because,
You know, that was probably the first thing that we looked at, and not taking up a bunch of your time. Is we would be much better to go lease a piece of property as to build one. But as the Vice Chief said, you know, that we're not even there yet.
Right.
So this was just kind of an initial report to say, you know, we are out looking, they're out looking for opportunities, and as we hear them, as you see people come in and out, you know, they want to tell you who's here, why they're here, what we're talking about.
and we just want to make sure we keep you all updated.
Well, on a lighter note, Susan, you probably already also researched that the JOM, or the Department of Justice, has already said that all the tribes can have marijuana, raise it and sell it.
This has nothing to do with this discussion.
I know, but let me tell you, I was saying on a lighter note, people I talk to hydroponics with, and they go, wink, wink, that is synonymous with marijuana. They said, you're growing lettuce? Oh, that kind of lettuce, yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in because that's the elephant in the room right now for tribes, and I am on that.
They say lettuce per pound is the easiest, most forgiving to grow, and it's what everyone buys and ships everywhere. You potentially, on paper, you couldn't grow enough for someone like U.S. Foods to buy it where they ship it. So
Yeah,
lettuce.
I read it was tomatoes.
Yes, probably tomato, lettuce, lettuce.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Oh, wait. Chief, Titus has his hand up.
Frenchman.
Yes. Question real quick. In regard to economic development, have you come up with any thought or plans in regard to all that land we have in Kansas now that's sitting up there? We should be able to do something with it.
Well, part of what our discussions have been was to find something that makes sense to utilize that land up there.
Do you have an exact acreage? How much is up there?
Do I? I think it's 91 acres.
I've heard several different versions of that.
Nobody knows about it. That's another good question.
Some people say 92, 101, 91.2.
I don't mind. We could probably look that up for you and get the survey for it. You know, I know we're not talking about this, but we're just discovering this. These guys don't want to do one building. They want to do 10 in the central United States because everything rots. So potentially, you know, there's an idea. Put 10 of them there. I know that's a sod farm, and as we look into the future for opportunities, that'll certainly be considered.
In regard to the hydroponics, what kind of distribution system would you have set up? Truck drivers?
Yes,
Interstate, out of state?
actually, what we would be is a wholesaler. With lettuce like this, you go in and you prove that you can grow it, and then you negotiate a contract. Actually, they'll come running to you with someone like U.S. Foods or Cisco, and they'll say, we want it all, and they'll just back up the trucks. Now, in this plan, one of the things that we were considering is 10% of that grow space would not be for lettuce. It would be for tomatoes, strawberries, cucumbers, whatever would benefit tribal members, and would have that as an actual distribution point there to bring here and give to tribal members. But they would basically come get it to us, get it from us.
Charles.
I'd like to compliment the council council on keeping us informed on things they're looking at, rather than letting us know after the fact that they did something. So, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Charles.
Can I put that in writing?
Yeah. Can you speak into the mic?
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks.
While Tim and David are up here in front, could I get a motion of this council to discuss a resolution about forming a company known as out of the order that it is on the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
The motion's been made and seconded to place discussion about resolution 2014-52 in front of the other resolutions, so that David McCullough can address the issue of what we may be doing in this meeting. And I would ask, first of all, our secretary to read that resolution. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to put it out of agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I would ask, first of all, our secretary, Nikki Michael, to read resolution 2014-52.
A resolution of the Tribal Council of the Delaware Tribe of Indians authorizing the filing of articles of organization for Tahkoh E2 LLC to be wholly owned by the Delaware Tribe of Indians. For some of you that don't know what Tahkoh means, it just means turtle in Lenape. Resolution 2014-52, and I will skip down to the fourth, whereas the Tribal Council has determined an entity to be known as Tahkoh E2 should be established under the laws of the Delaware Tribe of Indians, and that the entity shall be controlled entirely 100% by the Delaware Tribe of Indians. And whereas the Tribal Council has determined that the articles of organization attached hereto should contain a waiver of sovereign immunity as set forth in the attached articles of organization. Whereas the Tribal Council, as a member of the LLC on behalf of the Delaware Tribe of Indians, desires to approve the operating agreement attached hereto for the purposes of managing Tahkoh E2. Now therefore be it resolved that the Tribal Council of the Delaware Tribe of Indians authorizes the attached articles of organization should be filed consistent with tribal law creating Tahkoh E2 as wholly owned LLC of the Delaware Tribe of Indians. Be it further resolved that the Tribal Council of the Delaware Tribe of Indians authorizes the waiver of sovereign immunity for Tahkoh E2 LLC to the extent as set forth in the attached articles of organization.
David McCullough, and as a way of introduction to our attorney, David McCullough, I would like to say that David is one of the most adept attorneys that I've ever had dealings with, and there's been several of them. David, could you explain to our council and our members exactly what we would be doing by
Okay. I'll try to stand still. I can't tell. Basically, what we're doing here is what...
It's not working.
Just use that one up there.
This one works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No. There we go. That's green. That's green. That must mean it's working.
Green is gold.
Okay, good. I'll just kind of move it over here. I don't need much. What we're doing, or what the tribe is doing under this proposal is creating a company, Taco E2. It started out as E square, so I have to kind of stop myself because it's an environmental engineering type company. What the tribe has done, which is what a lot of tribes do, is take an internal analysis or an evaluation of the assets that the tribe has. One area when you really research the tribe, and which I've done recently in this area, is the tribe, like a lot of tribes, has a long involved history of not engineering but the environmental side. And this goes from NAGPRA to certain environmental issues, to clean air, clean water. And this tribe over the years has had involvement in a lot of these areas. What we're doing is we're harnessing that and creating this company, which will be Taco E2. Now what we're doing tonight is creating the company. As I said, anybody has any involvement, I'll have people come in all the time and I want to create an LLC because I have this idea to do something. So we got to create an LLC. 2 years later, nothing's ever happened on it. I don't anticipate that's what's going to happen tonight, but what we would be doing here, or what the council would be doing, is creating the LLC. Now, it's created under the laws of the Delaware tribe. Approximately 2 years ago, in September of 2012, the Delaware Tribal Council created the Tribal LLC Act, which basically models just what any state LLC is, limited liability company, what any of them are. And there's a provision in there which allows the tribe to establish their own LLCs. So the tribe can just anytime go in and create one. So the resolution tonight creates the LLC. After that's done, then the council, as the sole member of the LLC, would meet and approve an operating agreement. And that's just kind of like the constitution for this company and how you're going to operate. And then you proceed forward from there. And I also want to address one thing real quick that was in the resolution. I know as a tribal member, ears always pop up, but that's anytime there's any mention of a waiver of sovereign immunity in there, what exactly it means. The waiver of sovereign immunity that is in this document, in the articles, and will be in the operating agreement, is the waiver that's required by the federal government and by the Small Business Administration for any tribal entity that wants to become an 8A certified entity. There is in the regulations language. And what you're doing is you're waiving sovereign immunity only to government contracts. So in other words, if Taco E2 went out and contracted with a private company to provide some type of environmental services, unless you grant an independent waiver in that contract, you don't waive. The waiver is only for government contract purposes, and I mean, logically, if you think about it, the government's not going to award you a contract if you have the ability to engage subcontractors or other people to do work for you, and then you don't pay them, and then there's no recourse. I mean, that's the theory behind it. The government just requires it, and it only goes to the extent that, and I wish I brought a copy of it, the articles with me, but it only goes to the extent of that it's required in the SBA section of the federal of the code, the CFR, not CFR, that's tribal, but the federal code. It's a very limited, and it's limited when you're acting in the government contract area, and it only applies once you get your 8A. It doesn't even waive no sovereign immunity until you reach the 8A status. Now, the purpose of this, and let me make sure, I always want to make sure I'm clear. Does anybody want me to define what 8A status is? Okay, I don't like throwing around acronyms and then suddenly. There's a process in the federal government, in the SBA, the Small Business Administration, that you can obtain what's called a Section 8A status. And individuals can do it. It's for minority, it's for socially or economically disadvantaged individuals. But there's a specific provision that allows tribes to obtain the 8A status. And the 8A status is very beneficial. A lot of tribes are doing it. The 8A status is very beneficial because you can do a lot of things that even other 8As, individual 8As, can't do. There's all kinds of opportunities there. The question is, how do we get there? This tribe started about a year ago in moving forward with DFMS as an 8A. For various reasons, that's really not feasible at this point. So the idea is, how can we move forward quickly? Because quickly is the key. If you're an individual, you have to be in business for 2 years to even apply for an 8A status. If you're a tribe, there's no 2-year requirement. However, the further you are removed from being in business for 2 years, the greater your burden is to show that you can be successful at the business you're engaging in. So the idea is to get this business established tonight. This will be this becomes the 2-year starting point. So you get it tonight, now you're 2 years. There's been discussions, and the council believes that there's an opportunity that we could at least obtain one contract within the next month. And it's not going to provide any jobs for anyone. Matter of fact, it's going to be way overseas. But there's a possibility of getting a contract to get us started. And then we move along. And then as we move to 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever, if we're developing the company to the point that we feel comfortable at that point of making an application for 8A certification, then we'll immediately plug it in. But we don't start the clock running. We can't even play the game until we form the company. And then what the company does, whether it succeeds, whatever it does, will obviously be up to the council leadership, because they are the sole member of the. It'd be just like if I went out and started an 8A myself, I would be the sole member. The council is the sole member. So, but what this resolution does tonight is it creates the company. We can start our 2-year time clock, and any time between now and then, the 2 years, we can go ahead and make the application when the tribe feels comfortable that we could be successful at making the application. I'm sorry, I don't want to point out something, Chief. If I can, I'll just point to him, Chief. Okay, I think he's authorized me. Okay.
Yeah. Quick question.
Yeah.
In regard to the 8A, I know there were some tribes who acquired their status and so forth, but they started subcontracting out and getting multiple government contracts. And that was closely looked at by the federal government. Does that change anything for the program, or did it have that any?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, that all occurred really it came to a head about 4 years ago. And honestly, it involved the ANCs, the Alaska Native Corporations. And it basically was Congressman Young out of Alaska and Senator, can't think, name escapes my mind right now, but there were a lot of instances where it was argued that the tribal 8A was nothing more than a front. Yeah, it was a pass through. You had a large company over here, and they got a tribal 8A. And let me tell you what. Shut me off if I get to talking too long. I get excited about this stuff. But here's why it happens, and here's why it happens in the tribal environment. If I go out and get an 8A as an individual, the maximum amount of contract work I can have at any time under contract is $4 million. If I'm a tribe, there's no limit. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean in the overall process? Well, you have a lot of large companies, especially government contractors, who have to, let's say they get a $500 million contract, and they have to have $40 million of that contract work done by small businesses. They have to contract out that $40 million. Well, if they're going out to non-tribal small businesses, that's 10 small businesses that they have to deal with to allocate that $40 million because there's only $4 million per person. If there's a tribe involved, they can give that tribe the whole $40 million contract. Now, if you can put yourself in a management position, that's a heck of a deal because now I'm only dealing with one subcontractor instead of 10 subcontractors that I'm running around after. So tribes have a huge advantage in a lot of areas. But yes, it was very negative. It certainly has had some impact on, I think it makes the application process a little bit more difficult. I think they do look behind it a lot more to see what's there, to see what other tentacles are there. I'm sorry, yeah.
You just made a statement about getting an 8A contract within a few months or whatever, and it's going to be overseas. And I'm curious about what benefit does the tribe get for having an overseas contract?
Okay, number one, it's not an 8A contract because we don't have 8A certification. The thing is, how do you get started? Generally, you have to wait the 2 years. Mm-hmm. So if you're gonna pull in there and let's say you would say in 6 months we want to make an application. During that 6 months we've got to do some work because what we have to do is show we're capable of doing the work. So there is an opportunity potentially. You know, we set up the company and then we see if anything rolls out. Yeah, there's an opportunity potentially to take a subcontract from a group that does basically all their work in the Pacific realm, Pacific region, Guam, Hawaii, Guam, all out through there. This particular company that we're talking to is a former 8A company, so they've gone through the 8A program and graduated out. There's incentives for them to help people get into the 8A program. There's incentives, there's mentoring programs and the like that are recognized by the federal government. But the fact is, they have expressed an interest in helping. This first contract would be essentially a shovel job, but it would be a subcontract. And there would be a couple of employees hired. It probably wouldn't last 3 weeks. But if we perform it, that's just one contract we perform. And now we're starting to build our bona fides as we go forward to make this application. I talk with my hands a lot, I'm sorry. It's the attorney side of me. I'm always trying to convince a jury somewhere.
No, I know what you're saying, though.
Yeah, and then I'll get back to you.
I was just curious, what happened to the 8A application that was submitted last month or the month before that was associated with DFMS?
Right.
Where did that one go? Is Is it kind of lost in space, or?
It came back to us, so right now it's not in the process.
So why did it come back to you? What were the mistakes? Why did it come back to you?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why it came back, but yeah, I mean, generally, every application is going to come back.
Right.
Because there's no such thing as a perfect application.
So
That's
did it
what.
have to do with who was on the application? Did that have anything to do with it?
No, the application came back on technical review.
Okay.
You need to have this. You didn't have the right.
Right.
One of them was you didn't have the right forms filled out because they had created a new edition of a form. This is what deals with the federal government. What really aggravates you.
Right.
You go online and fill out the form. You print it out. You put it in a packet like they tell you to.
Right.
Then they send it back and say, "Oh, we revised that form. Oh, by the way, it's not in the electronic version where you go in and fill it out at. You have to go over here to get it." So if you'd gone over here, you'd have gotten it. No, it was purely on technical. It was purely on technical clearance.
So are there any safeguards going to be in place to make sure that this one is going to go through after
Right.
investing all this money in you?
Right.
And making sure that this, okay.
Right.
So there are safeguards, and how many of the council members are going to be allowed to be on that application? All of them?
Well, they're not. It's not that they're allowed to. They have to be.
Okay. All of the council
All
members?
of them. When it's a tribe making the application, the entire elected governing body has to make the application. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I attended a meeting back in 2002 or so in San Francisco. They had two representatives from the federal government military doing a presentation to the chief of the Navajos. Denny Leonard was the top fundraisers in the nation, also on the side, Warm Springs. And they invited me to come sit in. So I went. They had $8 million was allocated by the federal government, military, to assist ethnic minority organizations and individuals to apply for an 8A contract to help train them how to do that. They had to, at the end of the year, they had to turn around and turn back that $8 million because nobody applied for it. This is 12 years ago. And I informed our tribe about it, but nobody ever picked it up.
Well, I know this tribe had an 8A, which nobody really knew about until we put it in here. This tribe had an 8A entity that was formed in, I think, 2002 or 2004. And then it was terminated when the courts ruled that the Delaware tribe didn't exist. And so because you had to be an American Indian tribe, because you were an 8A certified as an American Indian tribe, once it was determined that you were not, and I hate to say it that way, but I mean that's where, once it was determined you were not, you were kicked out of the program. You weren't allowed to regenerate yourself once you were, and again, I apologize for the word, once you were re-recognized, because again, I don't believe that's the case with the history of the Delaware. But you had, can I tell one joke? This is not a joke, this is a true story. I think the first time I ever saw your chairman was, I can't remember the year, but y'all probably relate to it because there was a court case, but one of the decisions just come out unrecognizing you again. And I was at a meeting with a lot of tribal leaders and everybody was introducing themselves, and I remember Chet standing up and saying, "My name is Chet Brooks. I went to bed in Delaware and woke up in Cherokee." Because it was literally the night of that court case. That's always stuck with me. I don't know how many times I've told that over the years. But you know, I understand the history. And right, wrong, or indifference, it's all part of the history, and we just have to deal with it. We have to deal with it a lot of times. Because the history is what it is. So, yeah. Long answer to probably a short question.
Could I say something? I was going to ask you a question. Back to Titus's question, he mentioned that there were a lot of shell companies out there that weren't really companies, they were just pass-throughs. Did I not understand, David, that the government does a lot of auditing, and really, they prevent that from happening today. That doesn't happen like it did years ago because of the audit system, right?
It really happened. There was always an auditing system in place, but when the issue came up with the ANCs, gosh, I guess that's been about 6 years ago now. Now the auditing is much greater, and they're looking specifically for that. If you're sitting there as a shell, you're not going anywhere.
The issue didn't come up until they recognized that the tribes are making billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And the state of Delaware, that group up there, wanted their cut, basically. They did not want to see the native people making progress.
Well,
That's one of the big issues.
really the more egregious part of it was, and you're right, that is kind of part of it, but the more egregious part was there was a whole system put in place from their elected congressmen on down to where government contracts were being funneled into Alaska specifically for the ANCs. But they didn't really have the ability to perform. And what they were doing was they were funneling through to the huge contributors who lived and worked in Alaska, and the ANCs were getting pennies, and for the most part they were happy. But the fact is, the program was set up for $50 million worth of work for ANCs, and the ANCs were maybe doing 1% of it. Yeah, that was the more egregious part. It was just a massive payoff.
And did they get to, how much were they supposed to get? Were they supposed to get 10 to 20 to, how much percent should those Alaskan Native tribes gotten? Should they have been getting? You said 1%. What was
they should be, those contracts were set aside for, it should have been 100%.
Okay.
ANCs.
Okay.
On the face of it, it was 100% because they were the face. But behind it, it was 99% was going on out the back door and 1% was staying
To
with
the
tribes.
government of Alaska?
To private contractors.
To private contractors.
You know, who turn around and take those profits and make large contributions to elected officials in Congress. Yeah.
I'd just like to say it's a good program, though.
It's an excellent program, and it's an excellent program for tribes. Excellent program for tribes.
David, I'd like to actually ask you a question. We want to form this LLC, so we've got the opportunity to do business ASAP. However, by forming it, we are not actually making any commitment whatsoever to an outside group.
No.
In other words, we're just forming a company.
And anything, you're forming it, anything you do will be fully under your control. Yeah. Any other way, and you'll never get past the SBA application. If you even thought you wanted to do it another way, you couldn't do it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I also add, Tahoe is basically we're forming it under the environmental program. So those of you know Jimmy Johnson, he had an exceptional program, and he's done a really good job of leading it, and that's our showcase. And what we need to do in our 8A application is to show that we have had success in a tribal program. And we don't have to be in business, we just use that as our stepping stone of showing that we've been doing this work for a number of years. And so that's why it will be an application under environmental. And Takok, as you know, means turtle, and that seems relevant, given our creation story of being born off the turtle bat, then it goes hand in hand with environment.
Well, and another. Was I didn't mean to talk over somebody. Was somebody else?
No, I was just
I
making
thought
sure
maybe
Jamie
somebody
was
on the
good with
audience
it.
said something because I couldn't tell. Well, what I was gonna ask, David, what I understood you said too, we put these these articles together, and then after the articles have been approved, we go to the council itself goes in and talks about the operating agreement. We're not doing an operating agreement tonight. We're just doing the articles of operation. We're not doing the
Articles of incorporation. Well, I noticed that. I know that.
Yeah.
I know that I had sent them both up here because
I know.
Theoretically, you could do them either way. It doesn't matter. I didn't see a resolution.
Oh, well, that's what I was asking, since there wasn't another resolution tonight for the articles of agreement, the operating agreement. Once we do the articles and the council meets, then we finish up and do the articles of, is that what we decided, why we're not doing the operating agreement tonight?
Well, it's actually, though, worded as the last, therefore be it resolved. Tribal Council of Delaware Tribe of Indians authorizes waiver of sovereign immunity for Top Coat C2 LLC to the extent as set forth in the attached articles of organization.
You do it, well, that's right. There's two things. The articles of organization actually create the company. That's what you, under our act, you file the articles of organization. That's what creates the company. The operating agreement is what you operate the company under.
Right.
And we have an operating agreement that I put together in a resolution. It doesn't matter. It's not on the agenda tonight. It doesn't matter. Okay. You can do it in the next meeting. The articles of organization will start the life of the company.
Okay, that's
so
what I'm.
So that's our 2 years. We can do the operating, since it's not on the agenda tonight. The operating agreement can be done in the next. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that might make everybody tonight.
Curtis, you had a question?
Yes, sir, just as to just get clarified on your resolution, in the last whereas, the resolution does indicate that the tribal council, as a member of the LLC on behalf of the tribe, desires to approve the operating agreement attached hereto, and then in your therefore be it resolved, authorizes the attached articles of organization to be filed. So just even for my purposes and understanding, we're approving an articles of organization and an operating agreement, or are you just approving the incorporating under the articles of organization tonight, and then an operating agreement will follow later?
Yes. Yeah. There's only I didn't see that. There's in the
last whereas is messed up.
It is. I apologize. I didn't pick up the attachment of the articles of organization, so I think probably we just need to strike that last and rewrite the resolution for next time.
Whatever's right, David.
No, it's a.
I mean, I don't. It says there.
No, the resolution.
And I'm not trying to rain on the parade here. I'm just looking at technical corrections.
But it says attached articles of organization, and I did not attach those.
It says. Oh, I see what you're saying.
What I'm saying is I didn't pull that off. I pulled the resolution off, but not the attachment.
I don't know. There were two resolutions.
I've got the.
There's only one resolution here tonight. Though.
Right. No, that's what I mean. I prepared two resolutions.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So can we vote on this one and then vote on the other two at the next meeting and still be valid? Or do we need to table this and vote on them all at once?
No, you can create the article. You can vote to create the article of organization tonight.
But should we take out that last
paragraph? What says?
I wouldn't.
The next page, David.
You don't take it out.
The second page, David.
You change. Well.
Oh, you got it all on one page, okay, never mind.
No, I don't either.
Is the intent that this, instead of reading operating agreement, should have said articles of organization?
It says that on the second page.
Right. It's only this one whereas clause that for some reason says,
And that shouldn't be in there.
the whereas clause should be in there. It should say article of organization as opposed to.
It does.
Operating agreement, yeah.
But the second, be it further resolved, does say articles of organization.
And that part is correct, ma'am. It's just your very last whereas. Those words, article, those words, operating agreement, a simple amendment to simply read articles of organization would make the whole thing correct.
Okay.
Not really at this point amending it, you're just recognizing.
So on page 1, the very last whereas, it says, it should read, the tribal council as a member of the LLC on behalf of the Delaware Tribe of Indians desires to approve the articles of organization attached hereto for the purposes of Mananutahokitu.
As your tribal manager, I would say yes, ma'am, that would be a correct statement.
That's right.
But it doesn't matter if the operating agreement is not agreed to tonight or voted on tonight, because the clock starts ticking with the articles of organization.
That's correct, and actually most times your operating agreement doesn't come in until sometime later anyway, because most times you just file these things online with the state if that's what you're creating, and then you hold the meeting sometime later and do that.
Okay.
It's just that it could be done that way. No problem.
And as a point of, I don't know if this is a point of order. No, I guess not a point of order, Chief, but I just wanted to say that before we go incorporating under the LLC laws, we got to go through a quick technical change and take Verna's name off as the Tribal Council Secretary. And, you know, by default, she has full authorization to complete all of the LLC paperwork and use the stamp. I just want to make sure we've got everything in order.
Okay.
That's kind of a technical thing.
Are there any